Welcome back to States and Kingdoms. Today we're talking about Joni Mitchell and her fifth album, For the Roses, from 1972. One of my personal favorites. How about you, Sean?
Yeah, I like it.
All right. Thank you so much for watching. You know, I mostly got into Joni Mitchell because I know you wanted a personal story, so here it goes. I mostly got into Joni Mitchell from Mom because she had talked about, Clouds and Court and Spark. So I got those two. Yeah. That was the beginning. And then I got this maybe a year or so later, along with a bunch of her other albums, Hissing Summer Lawns, of course, and all the good ones. I love this period of Joni Mitchell. This is really my very favorite. I like Blue, but starting with For the Roses, Court and Spark, Hissing Summer Lawns, Don Juan's Reckless Daughter, that
Mingus.
Hejira, that chunk, I think is just classic, beautiful, perfect. What else can I say?
A lot, hopefully.
I'm a fan. That's basically all I've got.
Uh-oh.
You want me to talk about,
It's called Me Gunga Din, folks.
Back in 2001, Virgin Megastore CDs.
Since you've related your personal story, allow me to
Such as it
retort.
was. Yeah, please.
I listened to Joni Mitchell a little bit when I was a teenager. You started listening to her at some point, and I know Mom sure liked her. And I think we have 2 copies of Ladies of Canyon because I bought one.
That's how rich we were.
Boy, we have 2 of them. Always teasing.
Double
No one
CDs.
has 2 Ladies of the Canyon. I certainly I didn't dislike it, but it just wasn't for me. I was like, okay. And, and I think I really must have heard Blue around that time because I really
Hate it.
I know that album pretty well, but I don't remember actually listening to it on my own.
Yeah, I definitely had that on for a while.
So that as well. And, and it's just like, okay, but not really for me. It just wasn't.
Well, you listened to more Joan Baez than I did.
Which is odd, but yes, I did. I like Joan Baez.
Yeah, just wanted to throw that out there.
Sure, that's fine. Throw me under the bus. It's fine.
You're also listening to that, shit.
Tiny Tim?
That's what I was going to say. How'd you know? That is what I was going to say, and it left me. And
That's
it went
right.
from my brain right into yours.
What's the difference?
Sean, but I was going to say Tiny Tim.
Anyway.
I can't believe you said that.
It wasn't until quite a bit later that you put on Hissing of Summer Lawns, and it just really caught my attention.
You really like the Jungle Line.
Well, the whole album was
So moody.
so very different from what I had really listened to, and so over a period of time, I heard the mid-'70s stuff, and we've talked about Court and Spark, Hissing of Summer Lawns, Don Juan's Reckless Daughter. We did Hejira. Mm-hmm. We haven't talked about Mingus. We did Dog Eat Dog, which is one of her 80s albums.
The 80s album.
Which I actually rather like.
Yeah,
and,
they're all really interesting. Totally more than worthwhile. Just really, really good.
But there is a kind of line of demarcation here, and For the Roses,
that has to be the starting
to me
point.
Is really it. Where I can listen to Ladies of Canyon, I can listen to Blue. It's not like I dislike them, but it's still not really to my taste. It's I don't know what it is exactly.
Well, I think for sure there's.
I'm gonna just say it's
Yeah.
not. It's mostly, I think, just because it's not. If that was all she had done, it would be one thing. But I just so prefer her work after that.
Me too.
That it's it sort of loses by comparison to me. It's hard to explain. It's not like people that love that or it's.
Yeah.
It's certainly great, but it's just not still what I want to hear from her.
Yeah, I agree. No, I feel like For the Roses definitely marks a turn away from like what you would just have to classify as folk singer-songwriter into something that's it's shifting. Where maybe she never loses that 100%. There's still there's a little bit of a folkiness,
No,
but
there's no question.
It's more there's a
Well,
little
it
hint
depends
of,
on what you mean by that. You mean a specific kind of 60s
yes. I mean,
folk
like, yes. I
sound.
mean, like, Mamas and the Papas.
Well, not exactly, but you mean a specific.
Not Mamas and the Papas.
You mean a 60s folk sound.
I mean a 60s folk sound.
Bob Dylan, Joan Baez, and
Yes.
and
Peter, Paul, Mary.
well, yeah, all the things that are surrounding
Phil Oakes.
those people.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
That's what you mean.
Yeah, I don't mean like, yeah, like folk tradition.
Yeah, you mean
like,
people that were influenced by that scene.
So
that
that's
sound.
obviously a part of her, you know, when a lot of blue Ladies of the Canyon, there's a little more of that strumminess.
Yeah.
You know, it's very guitar based. There's piano songs, you know, throughout. But I feel like For the Roses, like the sound of it when it begins, it's just like there's piano and there's like a weight. There's a weightiness to the music all of a sudden.
There are pauses.
There's something about her phrasing that is different. There's just something has already begun to shift for her.
You start getting like syncopation. There's a way more discursive lyrical style that really shows up here. And it's not just like one song either. So you do have that for this entire album. Now it's you know, it sort of waxes and wanes. There are some songs that are a bit more like the last albums, but for the most part, to me, I think it's kind of an extraordinary transformation from Blue to this. And, you know, it's very easy to say, but it's very true that her jazziness, I mean, the jazz influence is beginning to be felt, and her use of alternate tunings is pretty front and center. And, you know, it was there before, but I mean, now I feel like you're hearing different kinds of textures from the guitar, things that you're just going to start hearing a lot more. You know, throughout the 70s, there will be staples for her. You know, they'll be front and center for all that time.
Even like if you take a song like the title track, there's that whole middle part that gets very jazzy. You know, and she's doing things with her vocals where she's singing along with the horns, and it's just different. You know, she's definitely exploring some interesting new things.
How she was writing her lyrics, and that's also an interesting thing. I mean, you know, they became obviously very personal. I feel like on this, and maybe, you know, someone could totally disagree, but, you know, they become very kind of centered smaller around her around this time. It's very interesting, and she becomes wordier, and she crams all of that into these melodies, and, you know, and the melodies themselves they become less reliant on typical folk melody. They you know, they do start to take on a more improvised feel, and, you know, it becomes very fascinating. It becomes very interesting on this record.
Yeah.
Whereas before, the songs could be beautiful. They could be sometimes depressing. I said sometimes. Sometimes I don't know why. Ladies of the Canyon can just depress me.
And Blue is the one that's supposed to be.
I know. I don't know why that is. Whatever. But on this, it becomes this intricate, you know, textures, and really becomes fascinating. And I really get sucked into it.
Yeah, the layering of her vocals like really starts here. In a big way. You know, there's
She's
like
always
so many
singing with
Jonies.
herself. Yeah, no, it's like Oscar Levant in American in Paris.
But I love it. I mean, that's gonna be one of her hallmarks going forward, of course. Yeah, there's so many beautiful moments on this album. You know, I love Cold Blue Steel and Sweet Fire. I think that has such a nice kind of like in my head, like the melody and the chord progression it's like a ladder. You know, because it moves like vertically up and down. I think it's really cool. I also always love Blonde and the Bleachers. You know what she's writing about. It's pretty straightforward. And like, I love it how in some places, you know, you don't need the poetry. You don't need like the really evocative visual imagery from the lyrics. She's just gonna, it's just like, like, there's a girl watching you play. She's gonna follow you home. Like, it's just like,
yeah.
You know, like she knows where she's gotta, you know, be more flowery, and where she can just be like, this is what's going on. It's got such a great rhythm to it, such a great melody, and I love like how the band comes in at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like really, fills out the end of the song in such a cool way.
I haven't listened to Blue in a long time, and did. And I'm actually really surprised by how different these two albums sound. And at the same time, Court and Spark sounds fairly different for it seems odd nowadays for someone to be developing like this from album to album. They're talking about a year basically in between each time. And I mean, it was common then, and by the time we were growing up, it wasn't a year. It was usually like 3 years for a band to develop. Now it's like 20. We were talking about how, like, even people that we know that listened to Joni Mitchell at the time and loved her, started to lose her. They kind of lost the plot in the mid-70s, a little bit. Mm-hmm. And you can understand why when you listen to these albums. I mean, she starts off with these, beautiful folk-like, songs, and then all of a sudden it starts introducing things that only she could introduce. And that's, that was another thing I was saying, that, there's some people, I can't imagine writing a song like at all, because it had to come from them. And she's definitely one of those people. I mean, you couldn't write, especially like on this album, I think starting on this album, you couldn't write a song like this. It would have to be her.
Yeah.
It's all in her voice and her rhythms and the way she speaks and everything. There's like, it's just her own.
Yeah.
And
totally.
and I think that's what makes this album stand out, from Blue and Ladies of the Canyon, if nothing else, that this is like, to me, feels totally like her album. Also,
this is, her style.
I also really like, there's a kind of, you say like idealism, a sort of youthfulness on the earlier records that I start to hear fading away here, and more and more.
She's been hurt.
And and maybe that's something that I actually really, because I was disillusioned when I was 2, and and I
hate
kind
that
of,
gee golly gosh, everything's great.
Yeah, I relate to that kind of
Pain.
No suffering. It's
Quiet
fine.
suffering.
I'm fine.
We're gonna talk about it later.
No, but
no, but you're right.
Yeah.
Everything is getting more sophisticated. Like the subject matter feels more sophisticated. All the music, how she's composing these things, how she's singing them, how they're being arranged. Everything is just getting more sophisticated.
It's it is a good entry point. Court and Spark are this. Especially if you maybe didn't love something earlier that you listened to, these are both great entry points to one of the most brilliant, sequences of albums in
absolutely.
History.
Thank you so much for watching our brief discussion of For the Roses by Joni Mitchell. Let us know what you think of this album in the comments. Like this video. Please subscribe to States and Kingdoms if you're not subscribed. And we will see you next time.